Hey, thanks for joining us here today on our live LinkedIn event. Great to be here. Again, Brian Carlson from Cornerstone Edge. And we're also here with Tony Wayda from JBF Consulting. Pleasure to see you, Tony.
Yep, good to see you too, Brian. We're here to talk about the interesting and ever buzzworthy topic of artificial intelligence, also known as AI. A lot of buzz in the industry around in supply chain and technology. Every software provider is throwing this in their marketing at some point in time, but let's get to it.
Real quick before we get started, Tony, do you have any idea when artificial intelligence started?
It was probably in my lifetime because I'm old. I don't know. Give me a year,
Well,
a
I didn't
decade.
know either, and I can tell you that I'm going based upon information that has been provided. I was not there. It was in 1956 in New Hampshire at a Dartmouth conference. And so, for those of you guys that have been around that were at that 1956 conference, that would be interesting to know what happened there. So,
I I was
the reason for
not
bringing that
there.
up is, I'm sorry, say that, Tony?
I was not there, I can tell you that.
That's what I thought.
So I think today, Brian, I think we're going to talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence. It's been the biggest buzzword in technology and supply chain for, I don't know, probably the last year, 6 months. And I know that, your specialty obviously is in the warehouse space, distribution. So I want to take a practical approach to this when we get to transportation, but from the warehousing side, what are you seeing that, is piqued your interest? What's going on? What's real? What's hype? I like to separate those two because I think we're seeing a lot of marketing and not as much actual and factual artificial intelligence in applications.
Well, I think that's a fair statement. And as we look at technology and software and processes in supply chain, a couple years ago, we really got involved in a couple of things with some clients related to a supply chain tower. And those concepts would look at warehousing ideas, look at purchasing, procurement challenges, and even take things to the level of where there's political turmoil and where there's weather events and a lot of things that could predict based upon some kind of machine learning what may or may not happen in their supply chain. And so that's where a lot of the conversation started, at least from where we have looked at supply chain issues. But then taking it one level down into the warehousing side, there's a lot of things that we've seen related to warehouse performance, warehouse analysis, warehouse software methods, and those kind of things. And there's a lot of things related to predictability around labor, looking at the transactions that are coming in. There's a lot of issues related to system performance and understanding transactions that are going through. We worked with one vendor recently that said they had artificial intelligence related to system performance. And so it could predict transactions throughout the day or the year of what might happen, and it would automatically turn up and down the settings on the hardware equipment. What we found was that didn't necessarily fit reality, and there was no easy way to measure it. But it certainly was something that's talked about and is being worked on. What we found is some work behind the scenes was happening as we were doing some of those things. So, in that example, it's not fully baked, but something that's moving in that direction from at least a warehousing and software standpoint.
Good. You mentioned the labor side. I know that, there's a lot of discussion around in the warehouse space as well as in the transportation space with some of the maintenance that's done. Obviously, from a warehouse perspective, there's all kind of, material handling equipment. Is that tied into AI at all? I know that obviously there's maintenance that has to be done. Is there any predictability coming of when things need to be serviced, how to try and prevent downtime, those type of things that kind of happening in the transportation space and with power units. But are you seeing anything like that that's anything other more meaningful than my normal maintenance cycle?
No, that's a great point. And I'll take two tacks to that. One would be more automation, conveyors, equipment, those kind of things. There is a lot of data that's going through those systems, and there is some machine learning happening behind the scenes to predict some potential issues. to identify what maintenance is needed and those kind of things. So from that standpoint, we do see some efforts to increase the AI capabilities in those areas. We've also seen on the forklift side things that are driven based upon the telematics and not just the maintenance piece of that, but also the system performance, the driving of the equipment, the height that they go, the speed in which they're going to not only handle maintenance, but also to handle labor efficiencies, sometimes even with a labor management system to refine the standards, maybe even to optimize some slotting of specific products, identify better task management, those kinds of things.
So telematics has been around for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is new or improved about the telematics, or is it just the use of telematics with some machine learning that actually is, as people are saying, AI related? Because as you and I both know, that's been used in transportation for a long time and probably even in the warehouse.
And I would say, for at least from my perspective and my opinion, is that it's purely the information that's gathered and captured and how you measure that information, make some better decisions, and implement that into some existing software applications. Again, we can say there's artificial intelligence, and we all talk about what's rocket science and what's not. And some of this capability isn't new. It's just looking at it from a different way or utilizing the data in a more effective manner.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about. I think you and I have talked about in the past. I call it the great rebranding, right? I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to AI. Not that I don't think it's a great technology and is going to be a great technology. I just think now everything that has any type of mathematical formulations or analytics around it, people are rebranding it as AI. I'll tell a quick story. Like, back in the late 80s, early 90s, my first job out of college, I was working in a computer room, obviously old school raised floors and everything. IBM guy comes and knocks on the door because, we had one of those super secure locks with the 5 punch buttons that were worn out so you knew the code. And he comes in and I was like, we didn't call you guys. He goes, yeah, you got a drive going bad in your AS400. We're here to replace it. And I'm like, we didn't call you. He goes, the machine basically sent us fault codes. It dials us up on the modem and tells us, sends us a service request, and we're here to replace the drive. I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? Is that AI? Is that AI? Not really. I'm sure that there's probably some, preset rules and programming that said, hey, if the drive throws X amount of fault codes in X amount of time, basically dial up. So that's really kind of programming, which goes around to, the other thing that's the big buzzword in transportation is predictive ETA, right? We've had predictive ETA at some level since the 80s and 90s, right? I mean, every time you have a waypoint or a strategic event, arrive to pickup location, departed pickup location, you're reforecasting your arrival at final destination, right? It's useful, right? But we all know that whether you're doing predictive in that manner, or is it truly machine learning where I've looked at this route over a period of time and I see some anomalies or I see some patterns and I'm actually doing something about that. And I think that's where I see a lot of the software vendors are now using AI, branding everything AI when I don't really think they're AI behind the scenes, right? How useful is the predictive ETA? If you're going to tell me when I'm on stop 8 of a 10 route trip that I'm probably like 90% that I'm going to be there, I don't really need a computer to tell me that, right? I know that if I'm on stop 8 versus stop 2, that my time I'm going to hit is more likely. Now, if you're doing something really valuable in gathering data to say, oh, hey, you got, a big accident on the connector downtown. It's blocked. There's only one lane open. It does the analysis to figure out, should I wait in my truck and go through the one lane, or should I basically divert off and exit around and then contact all my delivery delivery clients and tell them that I'm going to be late. Here's the new estimated time. Is this still okay? If not, call the office. That would be something that I would consider, AI and taking a lot of information in real time, and I'm doing something with it that is more productive, and I'm making a decision based on that. And that's where I kind of want to like I said, I'm a bit of a skeptic about what people are calling AI, but again, there are different levels of AI, and I'm not going to argue the machine learning versus neural networks. We've got, super technical people that can talk about that if you want to, but I'm looking at it from a practical standard, right? And that's where I think that it becomes important, because when we stop talking about AI and we start talking about the capabilities of the systems, I think that's when I think loses the buzzword and becomes actually something productive.
Well, and going back to your story about the AS400 and looking at the factor that you did have IBM show up, and there were, like you said, some specific programming methods that triggered a specific event that allowed them to come and check that out. In today's world, it's still things along those lines, but there is a lot more data elements available. There is a lot better computing power. There are elements, especially in a cloud-based world, where you can gather not just information within your existing systems, but even capture data from external systems or companies that use the same one with the same kind of data. And so having faster and better information can help. And again, maybe it's not necessarily artificial intelligence that's new. It's just more data that's available to you that you didn't have before.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%, right? I mean, real AI, you're going to deploy statistical measures, right, to spot patterns, without explicit programming, right? Now, the ability for us to gather so much data from so many different data points, IoT, real-time weather, real-time traffic, all that, and process that in a timely basis is what, AI can start doing for us that's really going to add some value. Again, there's pieces of this that people may or may not agree with. Drop some comments. We'd love to have a healthy discussion on AI. In the chat after the live session. We're happy to respond to any questions or comments. But we'd love to see what you guys are hearing out there. What is your experience with new software vendors, some of your older software vendors that are bringing in, AI technology into their applications? Are you actually utilizing it? Are you doing anything with it? I think
Tony,
the
those
other
are
thing,
good points.
go ahead,
Go
Brian.
ahead.
I was going to say the other thing I want to talk about, which the vehicle maintenance and some of that stuff and predictive ETA probably is not as sexy as some of the other stuff. But what I think is some companies out there are doing that's really cool is some of the natural language usage for digital assistants. LoadSmart has a really cool demo. I think it's on YouTube or something. I'll post a link in the comments after this, where basically, they're using natural language to say, show me my volume inbound by highest location. And then they iterate on that and say, okay, we'll break that down by, mode. There's a whole demo. I'm probably not following it exactly, but it's really cool the way that they're using natural language and interpreting that so that they can actually get, reporting and information back displayed on the screen. Oracle has their digital assistants, which is the same concept. But again, these digital assistants and this machine learning, you have to train it, right? It doesn't just come up and automatically do this stuff. There's got to be some parameters and there's got to be some training. I was looking at some of the Oracle documentation, and they were talking about how you need to train the model to basically be able to support and learn and grow. I think that's a key point that sometimes people miss, is that there are some parameters, there is some training that needs to go on with some of the AI applications and products. Another one that's doing some cool stuff is Green Screen AI. They're doing some predictive pricing based on historical trends, contextual relevant data sets, and they're pulling all that together and telling you what you should buy, a shipment for, what you should sell it for if you're a broker. I think that's some really cool stuff that's going on. And again, just the disclaimer here is we don't take compensation from any software providers. The people I mentioned, we are not partners with. We're not resellers for. We may be an implementation partner, but we do not take any kickbacks, and I don't own any stock in those companies. So just wanted to say that we are very not unbiased because we do software selection.
Tony, those are great points. And as we look at whether it's software or whether it's implementing new processes or anything that looks along those lines, what's interesting about this whole conversation about AI is what we've said is it's been around for a long time. And one of the key points is related to more data points, more computing power,
Yeah.
which gives us faster decision making capabilities. And one thing that surprised me is we had some conversations even this week with a customer related to what's the impact of AI as it relates to the environment. And I hadn't really thought about it in detail. And we were talking about the increase in mercury in the environment, the CO2 output that happens,
Yeah.
and all those things as this computing power continues to extrapolate. It can have an impact, and so certainly something that when we look at this world and what things, where we're at, we need to look at not just the capabilities of improving processes, but also other impacts as well.
Yeah, agreed 100%, Brian. I think you're spot on there.
Cool. Well, hey, we appreciate everyone's time today, and this was really helpful to talk with you, Tony. Any other parting comments as well?
Yeah, no, just again, if anybody's got any questions or comments, please, reply to the live, and we'll answer those. Love to get a healthy discussion going on. And we look at a lot of software vendors annually. We get demos. We look at kind of their strategic roadmap, but we'd like to understand from your perspective is, what are you seeing out there that's real, that's being utilized, that's actually providing some real value to your business, whether it's in transportation or warehousing. Would love to hear from you. Other than that, I appreciate your time, Brian. It's always good chatting with you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Kind of feel like we probably need some music, some walk-off music or something. Maybe some Rolling Stones, or maybe some Eagles.
I did it. Well, you kind of gave me the cue on the musical thing, so I at least had to throw out soundtrack for the Terminator and iRobot.
Give us feedback. I mean, was I drooling on myself, or picking my nose while I was talking? Anything like that.
Or was I looking off on the screen like I used to, or anything along those lines?
I said this on a box, so you're not looking up
there.
My fat chin.
I'll do the same.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.